13 colonies along the Atlantic coast declared they were no longer subjects of a distant king, but creators of their own future. The Declaration of Independence was more than a rejection of British rule. It defined Americans as, quote, one people bound by shared responsibility and consent rather than force. Nearly 250 years later, the idea is still being tested. Inequality is often framed through white supremacy, an important lens, but not the whole story. Communities harmed by the same system are frequently divided rather than united. If America was founded on the idea of one people, what happens when that unity breaks down? April 29, 1992, civil unrest was sparked by the acquittal of police officers filmed beating Rodney King, a black man. Los Angeles erupted. Many of those destroyed businesses were Korean-owned, and the violence was widely framed as a conflict between black and Korean communities. But the LA riots were not the cause of America's breakdown, they were a symptom of it. They revealed a nation failing to live up to the promises of the Declaration of Independence. Life was violated as lives were lost not only in the streets, but through decades of neglect and unequal protection under the law. Liberty collapsed when justice proved selective, when police brutality went unpunished, and entire neighborhoods were left over-policed yet underprotected, denying the freedom that law is meant to secure. And the pursuit of happiness was already out of reach for many, constrained by segregation, redlining, and unequal access to capital. To understand this, we have to look back.
A lot of the big companies that have provided jobs and stability, providing middle class opportunities, all moved out. And so as it is, a lot of the community, including members of the Black community, were hurting, first of all, right? And in that, also the 1965 Immigration Act also opened doors where Koreans and Asians and so many other immigrants were able to now come to America in greater numbers.
Two marginalized communities were placed in competition for the same scarce resources: jobs, housing, and economic stability. Scarcity turned proximity into pressure. Tensions were furthered through the model minority myth, first promoted in post-World War II media that praised Japanese Americans for being law-abiding, hardworking citizens.
And clearly it's a way of saying Asian Americans, have certain cultural traits that Black people do not, because that's usually the unspoken reference. The absent referent is Black people, right? So Asian Americans are law-abiding, Black people are criminal, right? So it's very much a description of a model minority, and the problem minority is Black people.
Though it appeared positive, the myth did not protect Asian Americans from racism. It weaponized their image, redirecting anger away from institutions and toward other marginalized communities. By elevating Asian Americans just enough to suggest the system was fair, it pushed Black Americans further down, casting them as the exception. And these tensions didn't end in 1992. They persist today. 2020 COVID-19. Asian Americans experienced a real and painful rise in harassment and hostility. Fear spread quickly through news reports, social media, and viral videos. Once again, the story became us versus them. But the data tells a different story. Despite media narratives, only 5.43% of offenders were Black, while 89.6% were white, and Black Americans remained the most frequent targets of hate crimes overall.
The media is very primed to talk about Black people beating up on Asians ever since LA, and also because of this racial positioning. They generally tend to favor, what they see as the Asian victim over the Black perpetrator, right? So, and you see how this all fits in with the model minority versus the criminal problem minority.
If we look at New York City, for instance, we certainly did have attacks by African Americans against Asians. But when we went across the country where the demographics were different, we had to change. The access to health care, including mental health care, is far more limited with respect to the African American community.
What the data reveals is not a story of communities attacking one another, but a story of how narratives divide them. The Declaration of Independence imagined people bound together, willing to pledge to one another their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor. That promise breaks down when fear replaces truth and neighbors are turned into rivals. Rodney King once asked,
"Can we all get along?"
That question feels more urgent than ever. We still have a long way to go, but we are also beginning to see repair as communities choose solidarity over division.
Instead of just generalizing, oh, you know what, they're all a bunch of criminals and da 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 da, perhaps to kind of understand, you know what, this community is also hurting and suffering, what are some ways that we could create opportunities that will open doors of hope and actual skills and resources so that, again, these individuals could also be an asset in the community? It's a very different conversation. And I think that's what's missing in many of these spaces where there's conflict and tension.
The power of the Declaration is not that it was ever perfectly realized, but that it remains a living promise, one each generation is asked to fulfill. Acting as one people today does not mean erasing difference. It means rejecting false narratives, choosing responsibility over blame, and rebuilding trust where it has been broken. The Declaration was a pledge made together, and in confronting the divisions shaping our communities today, it is a promise that can only be fulfilled together.